This radio show curates Japanese anime culture and economy. TORO Animation Research.
From essential recommendations to obscure trivia, this is Ryota Fujitsu's Anime Lab.
SBS Radio, TORO Animation Research Institute. In this segment, we have our chief researcher, Ryota Fujitsu, introduce historically significant anime at random and share anime-related topics in a column-style format. So without further ado, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ryota Fujitsu, an anime critic. Today, I'd like to introduce a film called 100 Meters. 100 Meters is based on a manga drawn by Woto, who also created Orb on the movements of the Earth. As the title suggests, it's a sports story centered around the 100-meter dash. What's somewhat surprising is that this has been adapted into an anime by director Kenji Iwaisawa, who gained considerable attention with his work Ongaku Our Sound. Ongaku Our Sound was something that director Iwaisawa had been working on independently, steadily plugging away at it until he completed it. It's actually a pretty simple story about delinquents who start a band and end up performing at this small local festival in the countryside. But he used this technique called rotoscoping, where you first shoot live-action footage and then turn it into animation. It was really interesting and quite an exciting film that got screened at various venues. So a producer approached director Iwaisawa, who had this hit under his belt, with a manga artist's original work and said, "Hey, want to give this a try?" That's how 100 Meters came to be. To give you a simple overview of the story, there's this first protagonist named Togashi-kun who's been fast on his feet since elementary school. A transfer student comes to his school. That's Komiya-kun, a boy in his class. Though it's barely depicted in the story, his shoes are all worn out and he probably doesn't have much money, and his home life doesn't seem very happy either. He's the kind of kid who just runs desperately to forget his harsh reality. Togashi-kun, who was fast, teaches Komiya-kun how to run faster, and the two gradually become close friends. But then one day, Komiya-kun transfers away. After that, Togashi-kun stops running for a while, but they reunite in high school. Then, at a high school competition, he reunites with Komiya-kun, who had transferred to a different region. It's a story that spans over 10 years, starting from their elementary school days and going all the way until they become corporate team athletes, with their relationship as the central thread running through it all. Of course, this work also uses rotoscoping, filming live action first and then hand drawing over it. But the drawing power has become even stronger than it was in Ongaku Our Sound. While rotoscoping typically involves filming live action and tracing over it, and there are parts here that do look traced, there are scenes like the running sequences where the five senses become heightened and perception changes. For instance, the moment when you feel something's off with your foot. You can't really capture that kind of feeling through rotoscoping alone. So they've freely expanded on it as drawings, as animation. For example, there are cuts like being chased by reporters in front of the locker room, cuts that make good use of rotoscoping, and cuts that leverage the visual appeal unique to animation. They all coexist in this film, and that's what makes it really fascinating. I think it was during the high school competition. Before the runners took off, there was this shot where the camera was positioned inside the stadium for a long time, and then it moved to behind the athletes who were getting into their crouching start positions. You really can't draw such complex shots with this level of accuracy without rotoscoping, you know? And it has this really high level of purity to it. Everyone's only thinking about running, and the movie's setting is basically just the school grounds and the stadium. I think you could count on your fingers the number of shots that actually take place inside school classrooms.
What about the romantic situation?
Not at all. There are like two girls who appear in the high school track team, but they just appear. That's about it. She's cute and brings glamour whenever she appears, but she doesn't really get that deeply involved in the main character Togashi's life or anything. She's an important character in those moments though, and you know, besides these two main characters, Komiya and Togashi, several other athletes appear and they really get into philosophizing about their running. I think this is something that's really unique to anime. If you had people spouting that kind of raw philosophical stuff in live action, it would feel a bit out of place, you know? But because it's anime, it feels like you're witnessing something truly important about life. also, the running scenes have this really intense, powerful music, which reminded me a bit of how music was used in the first Slam Dunk. So you've got these uplifting moments combined with philosophical elements, plus the realistic feel of rotoscope animation, and then the overall power of animation all coming together to create a really fascinating work. And when you think about why the producer approached director Iwaisawa, who's been working in indie films all this time to make 100 meters, it really makes sense once you've seen it. In Ongaku Our Sound, delinquents start a band too, but it's more like just banging on drums and bass, plus playing the recorder a bit. You know how on TV they do that whole, wait, you guys are supposed to be beginners thing when someone plays with advanced techniques? Well, that's not what's happening here. It's just that they have this really strong initial impulse. That initial impulse becomes the music itself, and that's what makes it feel so good. That's exactly what's happening this time too. The story converges on that initial impulse of why they run, so I think for the person who created Ongaku Our Sound, to make this next is a really natural progression. So anyway, 100 meters, I think it's going to be a really fascinating and talked about work. So if you're interested, I definitely recommend checking it out.
How did you enjoy this episode of SBS Radio's TORO Animation Institute? TORO Ani is broadcast live every Monday at 7 p.m. on Japan's SBS Radio. Please be sure to tune in. This has been Ryota Aoki, host of SBS Radio's TORO Animation Institute.